Hi, welcome again to day three of PACMI's Global Job Fair Week. I am super excited about this session with Lysandra Rickards, who is the founder of Soul Career. Finding your soul career is so important to your journey in getting a job. And it's also important for the companies to hiring managers to understand when they can identify that somebody has truly found their soul career and know that this is an awesome, amazing candidate to have. So I look forward to this conversation. Welcome, Lysandra.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to do this with you. We've been talking about it for so long. So I'm really, really excited about our conversation today.
Awesome. So we're just going to go right into it and we're going to get started by letting our listeners know about your soul career journey.
Sure. So, wow. I have been in government, I've been in business, and I'm now on my own as an entrepreneur. So, that's kind of the summary. So, we can dive into each of these three parts of the journey separately. But I think the North Star that I've been pursuing this whole time is helping people to thrive. And so, my first idea of how to do that was through government. I actually wanted to be Minister of Finance when I was younger. I loved economics and I studied economics in undergrad. I studied a heavy econ program at the University of Chicago um, in preparation to do a PhD in economics, in preparation to be Minister of Finance and fix all the problems in Jamaica and make everybody want to live here and nobody ever want to migrate or leave. And we all raise our kids together. That was my vision. Like, I didn't want my friends to leave. I want all of us to live close together and raise our kids together and so on. And so I did that. I did an honors program at the University of Chicago in economics, which was very, very difficult. It was like a math degree. And I worked as a research assistant in economics for the book Freakonomics, which is a pretty famous econ book,
Yeah.
after school. And in that process of working for Freakonomics, I realized that this is way too academic and abstract, and it doesn't touch people close enough for me. And the author of Freakonomics, my mentor, Steve Levitt, the professor, he actually recommended that I go to business school instead of going and doing a PhD, because business, he thought I had the personality of a CEO, of like a leader, and not of an academic behind a computer pumping out
You're
journals,
so
you know,
right.
pumping out papers and submissions to journals and so on. And so he was really the one that encouraged me to apply for an MBA program, which I did. And I ended up just applying to one MBA program in the States, funnily enough,
The
which
one
was
that is.
so just the one, Harvard Business School, because Steve, my mentor, had gone to Harvard for his PhD, and he was like, "Well, if you're going to go to business school, go to Harvard, right?" So I was like, "Okay." But really, what I wanted to do was move to Europe, because I had spent a year in Spain. In my junior year in college, I spent in Spain, and I loved Europe. I loved what life looked like there, where you didn't live to work. You worked to enable
Mhm.
you to have a bigger life outside of work. And
So
that just,
I wanted to stick a pin
yes.
because I didn't prep you for this part, but
Okay.
a part of the moving journey for a lot of people is they don't have much money to move, and some of them pursue degrees. I know that you personally were able to get some scholarships, correct? Can you just talk a little bit, just a little bit, on what that process is like, just to help them in case they need to have the same path where they have to go to university before finding work in another country?
Yeah, absolutely. I had scholarships for every single program that I did. So for undergrad, I got a scholarship from the school that covered tuition, room, food, everything for all 4 years. And that was, I think I did it needs based at the time, and just wrote a great essay and great application to get that from the school itself. For business school, I did a combination of Harvard Business School scholarship and an external one. So at the time that I went to HBS, the cost was 80,000 US per year. I think it's 100,000 US per year now for 2 years, for the full thing, room and board, tuition, everything. And the school only gives you partial scholarships because their assumption is that you're going to get a high paying job coming out of school anyway, so let's just cover a small part of it through grants, and then you can get loans for the rest of it, and then you go off in your high powered career. However, that is a trap if you are more non-traditional, because I knew that I was very non-traditional and maybe didn't want to do consulting or banking or tech after business school. I wanted to be more free and not have that debt burden forcing me in a particular direction. And so I did get a scholarship outside. And so when you get a scholarship outside of HBS, they reduce the scholarship you get from the school as well. Yeah, so you couldn't combine it. So I ended up getting 50,000 a year external, and so they withdrew their scholarship, but that was more, almost double what I was getting from them anyway. So fine. And I ended up having some debt, but a much smaller amount than everybody else that was graduating.
Okay. And just to be clear for everybody, you were an international student, so these things are available. You just have to look for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going back on track now.
Yeah. So while I was in college, I studied for a year in Spain, and the way I funded that was the same scholarship from the school. Wherever you wanted to go to school was fine by them, as long as it was a program from the university. So that year changed my life and my perspective on what a life should be, and that you're not supposed to work yourself to death in your career. You're supposed to live outside of that. And I kept looking for that after. So when I was applying to business schools now, I didn't really want to go to business school in the States because the American view of work was something that I was trying to get away from, because I had already burnt out from college days, right? But I was like, let me just apply to Harvard alone in the States. And then if I didn't get in, I would apply to school in Spain and France. INSEAD, ESADE, EA, all those schools in Europe. But I did get in to Harvard. And when you get in, you have to go. You don't have a choice.
That's right. That is right.
And it was a life-changing decision. It opened my eyes to wealth on a different level, and network and contacts and jet-setting lifestyle, and just all these kids from parents that were in the news all the time. Jamie Dimon's daughter was in my class, or so it was just very, wow, this is a whole other level of life than I had even known could exist. And that changed my trajectory again. So I did try to do the consulting thing in business school, but what I realized, I was working at Bain in New York. Their office at the time was in Times Square, right under the New Year's Eve ball. And I remember looking out the window and feeling like, this is somebody's vision of success. Somebody would enjoy this life. But for me, it was extremely empty, and I couldn't find myself in it. I felt like I had followed everybody else's definition of success. Harvard, Wall Street. I was in private equity group at Bain, so I was in finance. And if I kept on that trajectory, I would have made a lot of money. But I felt like, where am I in all of this? Because it was just very empty for me. And I couldn't find myself in it. So I decided to move back to Jamaica to find my identity again. I felt like I had been so removed from my identity in this process. And that's really what pushed me. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a job. I didn't have, I was moving from big 6-figure salary into pennies, a fraction of that. But I was willing to do that to really early in my career, before I got those golden handcuffs on, right? Before it was too late, I wanted to craft a path that felt authentic to me. And I trusted myself that I could make that journey look successful for whatever success meant to me, whenever I decided I could figure out what that was. So let me pause there. There's one more stage of the journey post that.
That is very insightful, as Amir said. Thank you for tuning in, Amir. Um, so, oh, my brain is just going because, not many people would have taken it upon themselves to even have that realization. What do you think pushed that realization? Because it seemed like everything was going well, right? And it's that whole thing of all that glitters is not gold. So many people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I want to go to New York. New York is the place to be," not realizing that it's not all the time that it is. Yes, it's a great place, but it isn't necessarily your place. And this is what we're here to do, is really figure out or help people to figure out, where is their place.
Hmm.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, I had an existential crisis because, yes, everything was going well. I was getting honors at Harvard again. I was in consulting at a top three consulting firm in New York City on my way to that big six-figure paycheck. So, what the realization was why does this all feel so meaningless and empty to me? Why don't I love this journey? Why is it so hard for me to do the work itself, even though I can do it intellectually? I just don't want to do
But it's
it.
almost like a dragging feeling, right? It's like a dragging feeling. It's not like you don't feel like you're thriving. It's like
Yeah.
survival of the fittest.
It's
Let's
like
just do
swimming
this because I have to
upstream.
survive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Swimming upstream. Exactly. And I didn't know what the answers to that question. So I went to these career coaches and they were like, okay, so what do you like? I don't know. What kind of companies do you want to work at? What, big or small? I don't know. Do you want to work for a brand or do you want to work for a startup? I don't know. I don't know any of I couldn't answer any of the questions. And so I moved back to Jamaica, back into my parents' house, back into the room that I lived in high school. And I felt like I had climbed and summited this mountain and then fallen right off the edge of the cliff, full 360, just to end up back where I started. What was it all for? What was this mountain of debt
But the
for?
truth is that you didn't go back to where you started. It's impossible for you to go back to where you started. You actually built yourself up, and
Yeah.
you are just transitioning into the next phase. Correct?
That's true, but it doesn't feel like that when you're in the middle of it. And so, if you have that awareness that you just said, like this is just a transition, you can navigate it better than if you sink into a depression, which I think I did. And I actually, many of my more entrepreneurial business school classmates, those first 3 years when you post business school, you are struggling really like, who am I? What am I doing this? What am I doing with my life? That's very, very common if you don't go on the investment banking
Great and learn.
consulting tech trajectory, right?
And
So,
some people actually do. I mean, again, you and I both have a lot of friends who are on that path or who did continue that path for a while and still ended up feeling the same way that you felt, just
yes,
a lot later than you,
just later,
or
yeah.
they're probably still feeling it and they're just continuing anyway.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So I did the hard thing and I was like, I need to live on a life that is authentic to me. Very, very hard at the time, much easier now. So I read all these books. I took 3 jobs in 3 years and tried out different things. And if I was bored or hated it, I was like, left. If I could leave New York, I can leave this job, you know? So I took
You
three
were
jobs in
empowered.
3 years. And I ended up taking a psychometric test and getting placed in a job that was perfect for me with Virgin, the Richard Branson Center of Entrepreneurship. And it was the first time that I thrived in a career, the very first time, because they specifically matched me and my personality to a job opening that they had at the center, which was in training and development. Helping entrepreneurs to build their businesses and become better business people, and matching them with funding and mentorship and other opportunities, coaching, etc., to really form companies like Pop Me. Because that is where we first met when you were a Branson Center entrepreneur. And Pop Me was just an idea on a business plan, and it was called something completely different.
Completely different. We'll get into that.
Right. And I actually met so many entrepreneurs, Jamaican entrepreneurs, through that process. And now I've become an entrepreneur myself. So the journey was, I started as a trainer of entrepreneurs at the Branson Center, and then I became the director of programs, and then I became the CEO. And that journey was 7 years. It was the longest I've ever stayed in one job. And that was because it was constantly changing and growing and evolving. And I was constantly evolving with the role. And then when I became CEO, that pulled me, it just challenged me in so many different ways. Now I was on stage with Richard Branson 4 times in 1 year, and I was going to Necker Island and traveling to London and Costa Rica and doing these amazing, amazing things. A true soul career, no question. So why would I ever leave my
Just
good
about to ask
job?
that question. To take on the entrepreneurial headache.
Why would I ever make that decision to leave my good job, jet setting, very prestigious, free flights in upper class on Virgin Atlantic with 7 course meal? Like, why would I
Yeah.
ever give that up?
Be careful that you don't have the listeners thinking that you're a mad woman, but I know that they're gonna realize afterwards that you're not. So let's keep going.
I am a mad woman. Why would I ever give that up? But the truth is that 7 year itch is one of the things. Like, I got to the 7 year point and I wanted to challenge myself in a different way. And I'm one of those people that I need to see what I can do in life. I need to constantly be pushing the boundaries of myself and ascending to other levels of being. And there was something in me that was compelled after seeing, I would say, 280 entrepreneurs passing through over a 7 year period. I knew I could do it too. I could do it for myself, right? And I had to test that theory. And over that 7 year period, I knew what business model that I wanted to put out into the world myself. And I just was compelled to do it myself. The other thing that happened was I went back to Spain for the first time in 15 years. In 2019, I was speaking at a conference put on by the United Nations World Tourism Organization around entrepreneurship in the tourism space. And going back after 15 years, it was like you meet yourself again, right? There was a self that you were when you were 20 years old, living the dream in Europe. And then you come back as a 35-year-old CEO to that same place. And you're like, oh my gosh, I felt life again.
Yeah,
Because in adulting, you become like a zombie,
of
right?
course.
Work, home, gym, sleep. Work, home, gym, sleep. That was my life. And then I went back and it was the food and the flamenco and the art and the architecture. And it was just life, Spain, life. And I wanted to live again. I wanted to feel that feeling again. So I wanted to give up the office life and live a multi-location life, Kingston, Spain, Miami. And I just needed to free myself and create that life by creating my own company. Soul Career.
Amazing. That's an amazing journey. So now that we've gotten there, and somebody's now listening to you and thinking, wow, I would like to have that soul career. But we're going to tell them now how they can tell if they're aligned to their soul career, and how important it is, right, for them to be aligned to their soul career, not somebody else's soul career. So if they're listening and wondering if this is their soul career, how can they tell? How can they tell if they're aligned?
Yeah. Well, first, what is a soul career, right?
Yes.
So it is a career that makes you come alive, where you are in a state of flow, where there is alignment between your authentic self and your work and the work that you're doing, and you have a sense of purpose, and you're in an environment that allows you to thrive. So all of those things to me to be in alignment for you to be in a soul career. So the environment, the work, how you feel, and who you are in that space. And that authenticity is really important. And so if we have that definition,
Okay,
yes,
let's talk about that authenticity,
yes,
because we can sometimes fool ourselves that we're being
yes,
authentic to ourselves, right? So while you're talking about being aligned, I want you to just stick some knowledge in there about um, how to recognize when you are lying to yourself about being your true authentic self.
hmm yeah. Well, I was lying to myself that finance was my authentic soul career. and you can feel. The first thing is to feel how you feel. If you feel exhausted, depleted, burnt out, and like you don't know who you are anymore, that's a clear sign that you are out of alignment. However, the hardest thing is to know, what do I actually enjoy? We have theories about what we enjoy, but we don't really know. And so psychometrics is, oops, my apologies. Psychometrics is a major, major part of that for me, because they reveal things about you that you may not even know about yourself. So step one to get into alignment is to take a few psychometric tests, not just one, and try to get a 360-degree picture of what makes you happy at work. So Myers-Briggs is one that everybody does. It doesn't tell you enough about the career part, but it's a good starting point. You can get a lot of free tests, 16personalities.com, Charity. You can do the free test and get that as a starting point, and then layer on some others. We have StrengthsFinder, we have Principles we have DISC, we have all of these different tests, and just start to piece yourself together from those tests. And then in addition to that, you have your personality, and then you have your vision for what a successful life means for you. And it does not have to look like what it means for other people. So for Melissa, a successful life is tech related. She has to be tech entrepreneur to be successful, right? For me, I don't want to have anything to do with building platforms. Keep that away from me. I just want to work with people. And so I'm more on the consulting side of things, right? I'm more on the talent development, leadership development side of things, and on the tech matching side of things. So define success for you. And then, really important is understanding your core values. My core value number one used to be freedom for a long time. Don't tie me down. I don't have a mortgage. I don't have kids. I don't have a husband, because freedom is so important to me. But recently that has changed to connection being the number one. Coming out of the pandemic and having a community and a sense of belonging and a tribe is now even more important to me than freedom is.
Which is also important to know that it's okay to have a moving target, so something that changes, but it's not okay to just not have anything. So you start somewhere and you work towards that. And if you veer off a bit and you realize that that veer off is making you feel better or more happy or more fulfilled, then it's okay to say, you know what, I think it's time for a change.
I
Um,
agree. I did that myself, but I would caution that every change you lose momentum and money in your career, right? So if you want to build wealth and build momentum, you have to at some point decide and commit and persevere through
Absolutely.
the marathon that is your career. You can't keep changing your mind forever. You're going to end up in a really bad place. But in the early days, important to test out different things and figure things out
Yes.
and then decide and commit. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
So that was, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead. You go.
Well, that was going to be my second part of alignment. It's like, okay, once you figure out what makes you happy enough, because nothing is going to make you happy every single day. Your career is a marathon. It's a long journey, and you're going to have dips and you're going to have peaks. And when you're in a soul career is when you know that you can navigate through the dips. You are willing to make it through the very hard dips in it, because this is what you decided and committed and you were meant to do.
Absolutely. And this goes also back to something that we spoke about in the last session on Monday, in terms of when you're moving to another country, that this is important that you know exactly what your targets are, what your goals are, because that is what's going to help you to be fully prepared to move. But that's from our side. And what do you think why do you think it's important for candidates to be aligned with their soul careers when they're moving, whether it's back to their home country like you did or away from their home country?
Yeah, really important to have a North Star that's guiding each decision that you make in your life. Your career is such a momentous decision because of the momentous impact it has on your life and your happiness and your well being. So you have to know the end game in order to know what decisions to make to get there. So my end game, remember my vision from when I was young, right? Being surrounded by my family and friends and us all having babies together and raising our families together in Jamaica. That was always my end game. And so the decision to move back was much easier because that vision was fixed in my mind. And the decision of what kind of careers would allow me to live that life ultimately is also easier if you have your North Star in mind.
Mhm.
So if you know what makes you happy, what your soul career is, that's very important in terms of the decisions that you make. The second reason it's important is your energy. We need so much energy in order to do all the things that we want to do in our lives and our careers. It's exhausting, right?
And then you
and
add a move on top of that.
add a move on top of that, right? So if we are to do the things we need to do, we can't be depleting energy by pretending to be someone that we're not, or pretending to love a career that we don't. That is an energy suck, and it sucks your spirit and your soul in addition to your energy, right? So you have to know what it is that you love doing in order to preserve and conserve your energy for all the other hard things that are going to come on this journey. And then finally, of course, longevity. It's like those who win are the ones who just stay the longest in the game, decide and commit and persevere. And so if you don't know what you love, you're not going to have the longevity in the game, or you're going to make yourself sick trying
Yeah,
to push through when you hate what you're doing.
and absolutely. And we have enough things going wrong in this world for people to be hating what they're doing,
Hmm.
let alone hating what they're doing and moving to another country. That's not helpful to the country that they're moving to. Um, so let's switch it up a little bit and let's talk to the hiring managers.
Yeah.
What can some hiring managers look out for or ask in order to understand where a person is at in their soul career journey?
Good question. This is a hard one because there are some people who are just great interviewers, and they're going to say great things, and it's hard to pick it up in the interview alone. So you need a combination of things. So the interview is going to be the most important place where you can figure this out. And a question or what to look out for is a mismatch between interests and motivations and actually what the work and the job description looks like. So, how do you figure out someone's interests and motivations and passions? Well, you can ask them the question, they can give you a great response. And this is why my mission is so matched to the mission of the company, etc. But you really need to listen for the truth behind the words and the authenticity of that response. And looking at their background and the story, I always like to ask, so what story does your resume tell me about the decisions you're making in your life? Or what is the mission behind these career decisions that you made? What have you been working towards? That kind of throws them off guard, and they have to really think about the answer to that question, right? And so we're trying to look for a mismatch there. And also, why this company, why this role, and why now? How does this role fit in to that narrative that your resume is showing me? Right. And so, yeah, we have to listen
Those
out.
are those are great questions, and also great questions that if the candidates are listening now that they need to prepare for.
Mm.
So
But
last,
beyond the interview, sorry, the psychometrics also is a
yes,
tool, right? To see the behavioral patterns underneath the interview responses. Some people are not great interviewers, but would be great candidates, and vice versa. But you never want to reject a candidate on psychometrics alone, because training and experience matter a lot and can compensate for any kind of nuance in the psychometrics. But it's just a good tool to see underneath the interview responses.
I agree.
Mhm.
Why do you think companies should look out for this type of candidate?
Well, it just depends on what they want, because most companies are looking for someone who's willing to go above and beyond. And especially in this era of quiet quitting where people are doing the bare minimum, 5 o'clock laptop close.
Goodbye.
Wait, is that corporate baddie on Instagram? Do you guys know corporate baddie? As 5 o'clock hit, he's
God,
closing his laptop, right? So
his Instagram is hilarious.
So if you are looking for someone who is not quite quitting, who is going to go above and beyond and invest themselves in the company, that's when it's really important to ensure that, well, is this a soul career for my client, or is this a stepping stone on their soul career where they can learn a lot and become more of themselves and more empowered and develop on a personal level, not just a professional
Exactly.
level. And when you invest in people, on a personal level, I did a Wharton course on talent management. There's a lot of research coming out right now on loyalty. And one of the biggest reasons that employees stay loyal to a company is if you invest in them personally,
Mhm.
not just professionally, giving
100.
them a coach, life coaching, the eggs freezing. Google is allowing, giving women the money to do their eggs frozen, all of those things. Once you do that, they will invest more in you in return.
We had, some people watching this may know that I had a podcast, Invest Human, and we had one of the sales leadership team members on from Sprint, and that was his tactic, right? Is to invest in the personal life of others,
Mhm.
of his team. And in all of Sprint, these salespeople were performing the best. And even if it is that sometimes they would leave because they figured out their soul career because of his help and they moved on, but it made everybody else want to come and work for him. So he always had good candidates coming in, even if they were not long term, they were always well performing because they knew they were taken care of personally as well.
Yes, absolutely. Essential to employee engagement and retention.
Absolutely. Well, I would like to thank you so much for this. I know it was very insightful for both the companies and the candidates today. Um, we have some special news for everybody that they can get a 20% discount on Soul Career services.
Yeah.
We will put those up on the site in short order. So keep on the lookout in the dashboard for those discounts. Um, and their services not only for candidates but also for companies. If there is leadership development that's necessary within organizations, definitely check out Soul Career as well. Um, and that's it. We're very happy to have you here,
Thank
Lissandra.
you so much. This was so great. It was a conversation between friends.
I hope that you helped at least one person today
Absolutely.
with what you mentioned, and I look forward to seeing a lot more growth of Soul Career, because what we do at PACME is try to place people in environments where they will thrive, and of course, Soul Career is a big part of that.
Yes,
So, thank
absolutely.
you.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
All right, everyone, have a great day. Keep on going on the platform. Remember, hiring managers, the candidates cannot see you unless you reach out. Be proactive. All right, thank you.